Unfortunately, I'm sick, so you'll have to excuse my voice. I interviewed Ron DeMarco, who is the props director for Emerson Stage and Emerson College. He started here as a technical director and worked with props pretty minimally. But then after the Semmel and the Green theaters were added to Emerson's theater repertoire, props became more important because in those theaters you have less space and ability to use scenic elements, so you have to rely on props. And Ron became sort of the first person to mentor the students who are propping the M-Stage shows, and eventually he talked to the chair and his job title was changed to props director, which is what he is now. So Ron and I talked a little bit about the differences in props between musical theater and street plays, and it's kind of a trick question because a coffee cup is a coffee cup is a coffee cup. But Ron said, and I quote, "Songs in the musical theater are abbreviations for emotions and allow the plot to move more quickly. And props can be visually heightened in the same way, so the audience can grasp their context by virtue of the spectacle." Sorry. So, because musical theater tends to move more towards spectacle, towards shock and awe, we talked a little bit about how to manage the budget, and the fact that if the budget is the budget and you can't change it, you just have to talk to the director and figure out what works, what you can do, what you can't do. And then from there we talked about a lot of the different props that Ron has had to build for musical theater, which include an 18-foot long snake sofa that was built entirely from scratch into 3 separate pieces that had to be clicked together on stage because otherwise you wouldn't be able to fit it through all the doors to get it on stage. We talked about some toy swords that Ron had to fill with LEDs that took 24 hours a piece to make. And we talked about how in an opera version of Angels in America, he had to build a suitcase with the light of God pouring out of it. And this is kind of a common theme in theater, that directors ask for the impossible, and then scenic artists and costume designers and property managers and designers figure out how to deliver it. So I asked Ron what was one of the weirder things that he had to research and sort of become a short-term expert on in his experience with props. So one of those is weapons. We joked about the fact that the FBI probably has files on every single person who works in props because we're looking up weapons specifications and all sorts of things. And then one of the funnier things that he's had to research, there was a show in which a woman was walking her corgi, and the corgi pooped on the ground, and the woman realized that it looked a little bit like the Virgin Mary. So Ron had to research how big is corgi poo. So in props you sort of learn lots of different things about lots of different things, and everybody in props has a different background and a different set of skills, but has to sort of have this huge repertoire of skills that they can call on. So Ron has a background in carpentry and set design, so his preferred mode of construction is doing things like by carpentry rather than sculpting or casting and molding. And he also really likes sort of found object construction, where if you need to make, say, a crown, and then you look at it, I think he said it was a chess piece, and say, oh, this chess piece could be the top of this crown, and find items in the real world and figure out how to Frankenstein them together so that they make the thing that you need. And then also his assistant Lisa, who is a lovely person, has sort of complementary skills to him. She's really good at casting and molding and sculpting and puppetry. So they sort of complement each other and make the prop shop run wonderfully. I asked Ron what the hardest part of his job was, and he said relying on people doing what they say they're going to do so that you can do your job. And he gave the example of if you have to buy something off of eBay, like a vintage doctor's bag or something, and the person who sells it doesn't send it in time, or it's not as it was pictured, or something else goes wrong, then there sort of creates a chain of problems that can ripple effect through the whole production, or at least majorly through the prop side of the production. So just learning to deal with that, I guess, and making sure that you are always doing your job so that you're not creating this chain of problems. He also said that learning not to become emotionally attached to projects and builds is really important, because you could spend a whole week and $500 building something, and then once it gets into rehearsal, the director says it doesn't work, and it doesn't work, so you have to cut it. And if anyone wants to go see Lucky Stiff, there will hopefully be a fun special effect where cash rains down from the sky.